Hello everybody in the software engineering class, the CS401 class over at CSU East Bay. Today we're going to look at JSP, and so I am in the class website, and I am navigating over to the examples folder, and in the examples folder I'm navigating down to JSP. And in the JSP folder, I'm going to go over the first part of the JSP.ppt, and then I'm going to follow through with some examples to show you a few things about JSP. So let's start in with the PowerPoint. I know you guys are huge fans of PowerPoint. Probably not. That was a joke. So this is the server-side development. I just want to show you the tags in the PowerPoint. But you might want to go through the whole thing on your own a little bit slower if you'd like. So this will give you the fundamentals of JSP scripting elements, talk about the object and directives. This is going to be a multiple part lecture, so this is just the first part. So let's take a look at JSP. Well, first let's see what it actually stands for. It's Java Server Pages is what JSP stands for. And so Java Server Pages is kind of like HTML pages, but they run on the server. They don't run on the local computer. So you could put HTML in there that's generated or is run by the web browser, but you embed Java code in there, and this is core Java. So it's the inverse of a Java servlet. A Java servlet is Java with HTML and CSS and stuff inside of it. JSP is HTML and CSS with Java inside of it. So it's kind of like and when we look at servlets, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's a combination of Java programming and web programming all in one. So there's 4 different elements that are used in constructing JSP pages. You get the script elements, implicit objects, directives, and then you have actions. Okay, so here's how the architecture looks. So the JSP runs in 2 phases. There's a translation and then there's an execution. So the pages themselves are not compiled until they're actually run. It's kind of like an HTML page if you think about it. When you go to www whatever and you get an HTML page, the web browser renders it and shows you the outcome. Well, when you go to a JSP page, the server renders it and then shows you the outcome. So it translates the phase, it compiles the page when you call it, and it turns it into a servlet. That's why they call it servlet pages, because it turns it into a Java running program. So the execution phase is compiled, the JSP is processed. So you have the HTTP server, you got a little Java container, don't worry about that. This is the Apache Tomcat stuff. A request is received, the servlet, says, do we have it? No, then parse the JSP and create it, generate the servlet source code, compile it and deliver it. Is it already compiled? Yeah, then go ahead and load it. And then generate a response and send it back to the user. So it kind of gets compiled on the fly. Not like other Java programs where you are compiling the program and then running the program. This kind of compiles and runs at the same time when the page is actually called. So you could put dynamic content in there because it's not compiled until you run it. So it's kind of like Java running like Python if you think about it. So scripting elements come in types. There are 3 different kinds of scripting elements. This is what we're covering today. We have the declarations, we have the scriptlets, and then we have the expressions. So here's the basic declarations. Declarations are used to define methods and instance variables. So they don't produce any output that is sent to the client. They're embedded in these codes. So all the script tags look like this. Well, they have this %, and sometimes they have an exclamation point, sometimes they have an equal, sometimes they have nothing. But the declaration looks something like this, where we are declaring some methods. So we have a public void JSP destroy. We have a public void this. We have and then we have an integer my variables equal to 1, 2, 3. So it's inside of opening and closing brackets, very similar to HTML. And this one has an exclamation point to say that it is a declaration. Okay, so the functions variables are defined. They're available to the JSP page. So these are functions, variables. These are declarations. You know, like declarations you put at the top of your page, like integer I, float f, declarations, declarations of functions and things of that sort. So it means the same. Declaration means the same thing in JSP as it does in Java. To declare something, declare a variable, declare a method. Methods and functions are used interchangeably, and in JSP you don't actually have to do an entire class object. You can actually do like C programming in Java, where you don't actually have to create any objects or anything. So, scriptlets. So they're used to embed Java code in the JSP page. And so noticing that the tags here are this is just core Java. It's called a scriptlet tag. There's no exclamation point. So here we have the exclamation point to say that this is a declaration. And it's only on the opening tag. The closing tag doesn't have the exclamation point. It's only the opening that does. So we leave it out and we just have a basic embedded Java code in the JSP page. So the content of the JSP page goes in here. The code can comply hopefully with Java. It should comply with Java syntactically and semantically. And we embed it inside of these here. These are the delimiters for it, or I call them tags. So integer, and these, you know, look at this and go, well, this is a declaration. Yeah, you can use this interchangeably. You don't have to use the declaration tag. You can just use the plain old basic scriptlet tag. And then we have this one here with the equals next to it, and this one's called an expression tag. So it's used to write dynamic content back to the browser. So if the output of the expression is a Java primitive and the value is printed back to the browser, then we have, you know, for example, Fred ++ Flintstone will be printed to the screen. So it prints out Fred Flintstone to the browser. And then let's say math we do the square root of 100. It's going to print out 10 to the browser. So it prints out the output. So there's no system.out.println. Instead, you use the equals. So this tag has an equals next to it. So if the output is an object, then the result of the calling to a string of the object is outputted to the browser. So if you implement a toString method in the object and you put the object in there, then it's going to print out its toString. So the basic expression is used for output, to put output out to the screen. We have another one that's not in here, which is the compiler directive, which is the @ symbol. I'm going to show you that when we go to the examples. So the purpose of this video is to show you the three basic components here, the declarations, the scriptlets, and the expressions. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint now and talk about what the tags look like. So I put a .txt extension on here. You don't normally do that. The file itself should be called first.jsp. I put a txt extension on it so that we could see it in raw text. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open up my clips and I'm going to start a new project and I'm just going to call it examples. So I'm going File, New, and I want to do a dynamic web project. And I'm going to call this project examples. And I'll use this, I'll start it in today and I'll use it for the next one as well. So I'll keep it. I want the Apache 9, and if you haven't configured your system yet, go back and watch the install. Next, examples. Click on the Generate Web XML Deployment Descriptor. It just automates the creation of that for you. Go ahead and click on Finish. Wait a few minutes. Installing Dynamic Web Module Facets. Not going to take long enough to pause the video. We'll just leave it alone for a second. There we go. Now we have our examples folder. So in the web content is where we're going to put our JSP files. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a JSP file to this project. And then we'll just run it. And then we'll play around with some of the examples. So File, New, and go down to Other. And in the Other, just in case you haven't done this yet, This is all going to be closed up. You have to go down to the bottom where it says web. So go down to web, open up web, and then click on JSP file. So we want a JSP file in the web folder for the file type. Click on next. We need to give it a name. I'm going to call this hello. And I'm just gonna, I can click on next, or actually just click on finish. Just leave all the defaults on there. So if we look at our hello file here, and maybe I can make this a bit bigger. Yes, I can. There we go. Wow, that's super big. I meant to get rid of the line numbers. I'll do that for the next video. I wanted to show you this compiler directive here. This is what I was talking about. This tag here has the @ symbol next to it. And this is a compiler directive is what they call it. And it tells the page or the compiler that, hey, we're a JSP page, and the language we're going to use is Java. And the content type is going to be text HTML. Outside of that, this here's a web page. I mean, it's a pretty much an HTML web page. And so for the title, I'm just going to put here hello world. We're just going to write hello world just to see what this looks like. Hello world. And then in the body of the thing, I'm going to put a B tag in here for bold. I'm going to put hello world. Actually, I'll put an H. I'll put an H1 in here. Now, if you don't know HTML, I'm going to do a separate video on HTML that'll be optional for some people. These are HTML tags. So I'll do a separate video on HTML just to give you a background on it. Otherwise, I highly recommend taking the HTML or taking the web programming course. That'll teach you a little bit about HTML. But these are HTML tags. These are header 1, header 2, header. There's 6 different levels of headers. And so to run this project, you have to actually run the file. And we're going to run the file on the server. And you might notice that my Tomcat looks like it's stopped. And I might need to republish. It looks like it's got republished. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the file itself. Actually, you can just right mouse click on it. And you can do run as and then run on the server. And that's going to tell me it's been modified. Do I want to save it? I'm going to say yes to save it. And then it's going to ask me what server I want to run it on. If I see this as empty, go back to the configuration video and install a Tomcat. So go ahead and click on finish. If I click on finish, I can see some stuff here. It says it's starting a server. Don't worry about all this red stuff on the bottom. The red stuff on the bottom is kind of scary looking, but it doesn't mean anything. I flipped it back to it so you can see what this means actually. It's just stuff coming back from Apache. It's going to happen. It looks red, you know, like it's an error, but it really isn't. It's just stuff coming back from Apache. It's not an error message, but it looks kind of scary. So I will leave that alone. I usually leave it on the servers tag so I can see the status. Now it says it started and it's synchronized. And so my page that's running is running hello world. If I wanted to run it a different way, I could run it out. And I did this in the last video, I believe. I could run it from just like Safari. I could just do this if I wanted to test it this way as well. And I have hello world. And so that's because my server is running. If you wanted to start your server, and there's a control panel for Apache and Tomcat. You can actually start the Apache server with Tomcat inside of it. And Tomcat is the Java JVM, is the interpreter. So Apache is the server, Tomcat is the interpreted language or the interpreter that's inside of Apache that makes Java work. And so I'm running this from localhost. So if I didn't want to test it inside of Eclipse, I could run it outside of Eclipse. So, all right, so now I'm going to come back here, and what I've done is I've clicked on first.java.txt, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it into my hello. So I'm going to go back to the source code here, and I'm just going to take this stuff out completely. I'm just going to remove it completely and paste this one in. And so now you might be wondering, what about all that stuff that was at the top? It's optional. You don't have to put it up there. This is an HTML page. opening HTML tag, closing HTML tag, opening body tag, closing open body tag over here, closing body tag over here. And let's run this one here. This is called first JSP. So if we run this one, even though it's called hello, we just put the title up as first. Let's run it, and then I'll explain what this is doing, just to make sure. And I'm going to click on this prompt here. It says do not prompt to save on close when still open elsewhere. And say save. I probably will. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, because now I'm going to click on finish. Now I'm going to forget to save it. So now it says life goes on, and then we have a number that's being printed out, and then we have a link that says try again. So what is this code doing? Let's take a look. This is JSP. Okay, so we've got a regular, and I told you there was 3 types. This is just one type that's being used, and it's the basic. It's the basic tag. So we're not doing a declaration, but we could do a declaration in here, but I'm going to show you these other tags. So this one's just the basic tag. This is number 2 in the PowerPoint, the basic. So I've got double number, which is going to be math.random, and you're like, well, where did that come from? Where's the library? Import math. You don't have to import it. So all the core libraries are already available for you. It's just way modified, which automated, which is great. Then we have if the number is larger than 0.95, then you're going to print out, have a lucky, you'll have a lucky day. You'll have a lucky day. Else, life goes on, and then it's printing out the number. So this one is showing you the tag, the equals tag, and it's printing out the actual number. The actual number's here. Okay. All these tags are sort of overkill. They're in here for illustrative purposes. It means all of the scope of everything is in the entire page. So it's a page scope. So even though that this is embedded in here, this is out here, and then this is in here, everything inside the opening and closing here, and we stop. It's kind of to illustrate a point, and I'm going to make this a little cleaner for you actually right now. We don't actually need to put in this closing one here, or the opening one here, the closing one here, the opening one here. We can actually minimize what we're doing here. And maybe I'll play around with this in the next one. This could all be in one opening and one closing, and we can embed one inside. So, actually here, I'll do it now. Why not? Why not? So just take them out. We need this last one though. We need the last one because, oops, we need this one in here. This is HTML. All right, so let me illustrate a point here. This is HTML code. HTML code doesn't run inside of an opening and closing script. So we have to close the script for this HTML code to run. So what we're looking at here, and I kind of did this so I can illustrate a point. In some cases, if you just have Java code, you only need an opening and a closing, and you can put all your Java code in here. And I have another example that's going to show you that. But what we're looking at here, and if we click my mouse over here, I should see in a message or something that comes up, and I guess I don't. Yeah, invalid character constant. This is not the point I'm trying to make is this is not Java code. This is Java code. This is not Java code. This is HTML code. So because we don't have Java code there, we do need that tag. So I'm going to put that tag back in. So this guy's happy. We've got Java code. Now, down here, this should have given us an error message. I'm surprised that it didn't, actually. But we do have an error message down here because it's an invalid location of tag H3. Yeah, because H3, this tag here is actually not, this is not Java code either. So in essence, when we want to put Java code in here, so this is Java code. This is not Java code, but this is Java code. So all of the Java code has opening and closing brackets next to it. This is HTML code. That's HTML code. This is HTML code. This is Java code. So I need to put this in, because this is Java code. I'm going to put this inside of the brackets. Or I can call them brackets, inside of the tags. Now, so this is outside, which is good. And I kind of put this all on one line, but you could put it on, and I down here, I kind of put a line return in here. It's just like HTML. It doesn't matter. It's not a what you see is what you get. It's all, you could write the whole thing on one line. Okay. So now, because I want to put more Java code in, I put the Scriptlet tags in here. So I've got now Java. Now this is not Java, so this doesn't need any tags. This I just left alone. I didn't mess with this at all. This has got an equal sign next to it because, well, it's Java. This is Java. We want number. And this number is here. So we don't have to import the number in here. We don't have to. The scope of this is visible here. So regardless of whether or not you have these opening and closing tags here, the scope is the entire package here. I guess, page, excuse me. So I need to put this, I'm going to put this one back here too. So we have our, because this closing bracket is Java code. And then down here, we had this, I think this was actually right there, but who knows. This is HTML code. And we don't need that right there. There we go. Oh, actually we do, because we have it here. We do need that. Okay. This is HTML code. This is HTML code. So this little message is going to tell us invalid location of H3 tag. Yeah, because it's kind of outside. It's actually not invalid. In fact, I think this is what they want. It isn't case sensitive. But let's see what we got here. Oh, now it's a red thing. I probably introduced it. Well, that's because, yeah, I see what we did wrong here. We need that in there. We did an anchor. And now we have the anchor all in one line, which is okay. Let me just run this one more time, make sure I haven't totally messed it up. I was trying to illustrate a point, but the point, I don't know if it was really good or not. It still works. Okay, so I haven't messed it up completely. It still does work, although I'm getting some unlucky stuff going on here. Let me make sure, though, I save it. So now I have saved it. Let me run it again just to make sure. Well, life goes on. I'm not very lucky here. All right, so let's see. I'm not getting any lucky numbers here. My random number is not coming up larger than 0.95. Okay. So let me just finish this up a little bit. Hopefully you guys can figure this out. It's just core Java. So we're defining a double number. A number is going to be equal to random, math.random. If the number is larger than 0.95, then we're going to print out this. Else, we're going to print out this. We keep getting the life goes on one. And we're going to print out the numbers. So this is the Scriptlet tag with the equals to print out just the value of the number. And this is the number that we're printing out in here. And then we have an anchor here, and the anchor is a reference, and the reference is going to be printing out. And here's the reference that is to get the requested URI, which is the URI for the page. And it's got the equals here as well, because it's going to print out the URI for the page. And in the anchor, it's going to say try again. So this is what shows up on the screen, the try again. And the try again is going to load the page all over again. So try again loads the page again and again and again. So it's just loading the page. This is the reference. It's going to take and load the page again, is what this is doing. So when we click on try me again, try me again, so you can see what I'm talking about, and make sure that I've saved it, make sure I'm running this particular version of the code. So try me again, try me again, try me again. Ah, wait a minute, it did make it. It seems like life will go on. Oh, there it is. Finally, I'm gonna have a lucky day. And my luck is not so good. Wow. Occasionally I do get lucky. But again, here it is. So this link, this is what we're doing. We're requesting the page. So this is actually showing you how to do a link with a hyperreference to request the page all over again. So it loads the page back up all over again every time you click it to generate another random number to give us another expression. So, all right, we'll leave that one alone. I'm actually going to put in another file now. This is going to be for the next example. And so let's look at this one here. It says tic-tac-toe. We have the hello world. Hello world, I kind of showed you a few minutes ago, but actually let's do it this way. I'm just going to take this part out and I'll show you what we can do with hello world. Actually, let's do it this way. Copy. I'm going to leave off the top of it for right now. We'll put hello world in here just to say we did it, and I'll show you another way. And rather than using HTML, we'll write it out using the print to the screen from JSP. So I'm going to put another file, and you can put as many files as you want in here. I'm going to call this one hello world, because that's what this one really is. Hello world simple. Because the other one was called hello, which is really not, it doesn't really matter what you call these. In fact, I can refactor this here, rename it, and call it, I think it was called random or something. I don't know. Random. So now we have hello world simple. And in the hello world simple, I'm going to take this out for a second. Just want to call you just, oops, paste. Here's some simple stuff. So I'll change it here. Hello world simple. We don't really need a title. The title just shows up on the tab here, but probably gonna need a head start tag for the head though. So we have an opening head. You know what? Probably need to put an HTML in here too. So I got an opening, because the tags come in pairs. So I have an opening HTML, closing HTML, opening head, a closing head, an opening body, a closing body. And where I'm putting in the JSP code right now is in the body section. And this JSP code is going to put hello world. This time it's going to use JSP for it. And then I've got the font color is going to be equal to red. It's going to say testing here. So if I save this, probably should just click the auto save on here anyway, but yeah. And run it on the server. I get hello world testing here. And then this is what I'm talking about. This is where the title shows up, if we put the title in there. So this guy is just using both. So this is just HTML code. This is the JSP code that we're learning in this class. And so this one here has got the equals, which means it just prints something to the screen. So this one was actually easier than the last one we did. But I started with the other one first. So let's do tic-tac-toe. So tic-tac-toe, let's make a new JSP file. Take a look at that. Tic-tac-toe is about as basic as you can get when it comes to Java programming. So file, new, other, JSP, next. And I'm going to call this one tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe. Doesn't really matter. It's not case sensitive. Doesn't really matter what you call it. And let's paste this in here. Copy. Paste. Let's run it first so you can see what's going on with it. Well, before I run it, well, let's just run it. Let's just run it. So click on tic-tac-toe, run as, run on the server. Just gonna go finish. Should have a tic-tac-toe game coming up. Oh, it's broken. Insert title here. What's going on here? tic-tac-toe is broken. Is tic-tac-toe broken? Let's see. I probably didn't save it. Let's see. Save it. Yes. Tic-tac-toe is not broken. It works. Let's just take a look here. Game button. Okay, we're good. We're good. Oh, there we go. Tic-tac-toe is not broken. I didn't save it. I was going to make it a little bit bigger for you so you can sort of see it. So when you click on the little buttons here, it's not so smart, actually. Ooh, maybe it is smart. You won. So let's reset it. So the computer picks another random. It doesn't. Oh, maybe it is. No, it's not. It's not very smart because it should have put the 0 here. So what you got then is a tic-tac-toe game with a pretty stupid computer. That's easy to win. You probably could make a smarter version of this game. Let's take a look at the code. So the idea is to kind of figure out how we're doing that here. So we have this, which you should put at the top. I showed you a few minutes ago in both of these two examples. We didn't put the compiler directive at the top. If we're running this on a web server, we probably, which we are actually, you should put this on the top. Basically, it's just it's not required, it's optional, but it's definitely the standard. So the add directive tells you that this page is Java, the import is Java util, and we're going to use the import Java math class up here. So if we wanted to import libraries, because this one is actually using imports, the other one wasn't using an import, even though the math library worked when we did the random, it worked just fine. But if we wanted to, we can import, and this is how you're importing libraries. So the importing library, this is the closing tag, and this is the opening tag, and we're setting the page, the language to Java, and we're setting a couple of imports. And you just basically list out all the imports. It doesn't actually have to be all on one line. You could do it this way if you wanted to. But you are importing libraries. If you're going to import a library, you use the compiler directive tag. That's the compiler directive tag, opening and closing. All the closing tags are the same. They're all just this symbol. And the opening ones are this plus an added character, an equal sign, an exclamation point, or the @ symbol. Okay, HTML to tic-tac-toe, the body. So here we have a declaration of the game. So we have an opening tag and we have a closing tag. This is core Java. You can take this code out and run it as regular core Java. And so this is just basically creating an array of tiles, a 3x3 array of characters. I'm just going to put an O or an X in there. We saw it work. We're going to check for the reset button. If the reset button is clicked, then the request.get parameter reset. Well, that's what we just ran a few minutes ago. In the random, we ran a get request URI. In this one, we are running the get parameter reset. So if it's not equal null, if it's not reset, we're going to check for the reset button. If it's not, if we didn't click the button, then we're going to leave it alone. And now we've got an array inside. We've got a loop inside of a loop for a two-dimensional array to determine if there's a winner. So check for a game button, click. And so what we're looking at then here is checking for a Boolean expression. Did X hit? Did X hit on something? Then we're going to check the logic to see if we have more than 2 X's or 3 X. Excuse me, if we have 3 X's in the row. So see if X1, and this is kind of primitive. We're going to check, the horizontal, the vertical, and then the diagonals. And then we have a play for 0. Which is kind of stupid. It just randomly picks a spot. That's what we need math random for. Of the 3 locations on the 3x3 grid, it's just going to randomly pick a spot. If there's nobody in that spot, then, if the tile is empty, then we'll put a 0 in there. If not, we just do it again. And we check for an O when after the O go. So after each turn, after the X and after the O, there's a check to see if there's a winner. Save the game state as session attributes. Well, this we're going to learn in another lesson coming up. But this is, we can use session data. This will actually keep track of how many times X has won and how many times 0 has won. But this is also Java code, session.x. We'll do a separate video on sessions. But I have an HTML form that on the action, when you click it, it's going to run the Jsp file, the tic-tac-toe JSP. A little border 1, which is that little table actually that we've got. We have a table with border 1. That's the table. This is a table, HTML table with the border size 1. And we set the rows and the columns. And so you see you have the JSP code, and then you've got the HTML code. This is HTML code. Everything in green, by the way, is HTML code, unless it's a comment. And then you got more Java code to see if there's a winner. And then you've got your form closing on your input submit on the buttons. So you're putting buttons in there, and when you click the buttons, there's buttons. You can hardly tell it, but there's buttons in these forms, in the form. And when you click the buttons, the event's happening. So not like swing, not like JWT, AWT or swing, not like that at all. You're using HTML instead. And you don't have to actually program a button click event. You get the button click event from the form. And this is a button click on a form element. And so it's running a, well, it's gonna, when you click the buttons that are inside of the table, it's gonna check to see if if it's empty. If it is empty, whoever's turn it is gonna put the O or the X. Actually, it only puts an X in there. It doesn't put an O. Only the computer puts an O in there. You might notice stuff like this, out.println. There's no system in front of it because there's no system. It's not a console. So we do have the ability to print to the screen inside of Java using out.println. That's different than when you print to the screen using the tags that we saw in this example. In random, we printed to the screen this way. You could have maybe, instead of using these tags, this could have been done with a system.out, with an out.println. And what we're printing out has the ability to take HTML code. So you can put HTML code inside of print statements in Java. So this is core Java with HTML code inside of it, inside of the out.printlns. So this is meant to be just a preliminary example to show you what JSP looks like. And you're going to have an assignment on this, actually. Let's bring up the assignment real quick here. It is number 6. And so assignment number 6, let's just take a look here. So in this exercise, and you're going to want to start working on number 6, programming assignment number 6, Introduction to JSP and Servlets. So the exercises listed below are intended to provide you with some introduction to servlets and JSP. You're going to complete all 3 exercises. So exercise number 1, you're going to get used to JSP. So you're going to write a simple JSP page that prints out a series of consecutive numbers by using a Java loop construction. The output could be, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, all right, just go back to basics here. How could I print out this numbers? How can I print out 1 through 10 to the screen using Java? Well, you can use like a for loop, for I, any Java code you want. What the idea is, you want to stick it inside a JSP page. So you're going to use the JSP tags to print out a loop. And in an upcoming video, I'll show you more examples of that, but you could probably figure that out. You can probably easily figure out how to print that out. Because you're going to use a JSP tag, but you're just writing core Java. So if this bothers you, then just forget about the JSP part and write the Java code and then take the Java code and figure out how to stick it inside of the JSP page. So concentrate on the Java code, and to do a loop that prints out 1 through 10 is pretty simple. You should be able to do that. So then you're going to modify 1A and print out a series of numbers given this instead. So you're going to print out these numbers instead of 1 through 10. So you're going to change the Java code. The page itself is the same. And you can stick all of these answers to all of your JSP questions all into one JSP page. You don't have to use multiple pages. So then you're going to modify the page itself to print out each line the sum of the squared numbers iterated through so far. So we're going to square the numbers. So you're just changing the Java code again. So in order to make this last printout by the previous JSP easier to read, you're going to change the font color for every other line. So now you're going to play with some HTML stuff to change the font color of every other line that you're printing out. So now in the part D, and I would just focus on exercise 1 at this point. And so for part D, you're just going to add some HTML code to it. And the HTML code that you add to it is going to print out, and it's just going to change how it prints out. The code itself is the same. In your loop, you're just going to add some HTML coding. Okay. In part number 2, you're going to write a JSP page that prints out 75 random integer numbers. Well, I just showed you random, actually how to do a random number, in a table with 5, and you're going to use a table with 5 columns and 28 rows as follows. And the random numbers are listed in the first 3 columns, and the sum and the average are going to be listed in random numbers in a particular row, given the last 2 columns. Imagine a table with a bunch of series of random numbers, and then at the end of the columns you're going to have an average. So you're going to have random numbers that are listed in the first 3 columns, and then you're going to have another column that says sum and another column that says average. And the headers are going to be trial 1, trial 2, trial 3, horizontal sum and horizontal average. And you can use a table for this, actually. And that's going to be printed in the upper row or the table header. And then you're going to sum up. You're going to put the sum in there, the sum and the average of the three columns that are printed in the last 2 rows. That's going to be in the 4th column. So to make the table easier to read, you're also going to limit the number of displayed digits and use some bold fonts or appropriate background colors or foreground colors. Add some HTML code to your table. And then in part B, you're going to implement the exercise as a servlet. So I'm going to show you some more examples, and I'll show you an example that's very similar to this. But I want to sort of have you try exercise number 1 first. And so if we take a look at the schedule of the class here, and I'm going to go over a lot more examples with you before this is due. This is just the start. Let's just take a look at when assignment number 6 is due. Assignment number 6. Hello. Okay. Assignment number 6 is due on 4/29. We're up here. You should be working on assignment number 5, by the way. And so assignment number 6 is not due till 4/21. And this is Monday. This is the lecture for Monday, 4/13. So on Wednesday's lecture, I'm going to show you and some more information about JSP and some introduction to servlet stuff. And we'll continue this discussion. So you probably could do, with a little bit of, you probably could do 1A and B, C and D. You probably could do all of exercise 1. I'd wait on exercise 2 a little bit. I'm going to show you some more examples in Wednesday's lecture. But yeah, I would take a stab at exercise number 1. If you haven't done assignment number 5, if you remember, assignment number 5 is the DVD manager program, the GUI. So this is completely different. you are using the GUI, you're doing Swing and AWT on that. You're not using JSP or Scriptlets for the GUI for the DVD Manager program. So you should still be working on number 5, the GUI, and that one is due this week. That one is due this Wednesday. So this week you've got your AWT and you got your Swing due. But if you've finished that already, if you haven't finished the AWT and the Swing, I would do that one first. If you have finished that one, then you start in with part A of program 6. We still have 2 weeks. Actually, we have almost 3 weeks before that one's done. Number 7 is going to be a servlet project that you're going to know how to do very easily as soon as we get a little bit more into JSP. So that's the game plan for this week. And this is a Tuesday's lecture. So this is the lecture for today for 413. And we will continue with JSP. And what I'm going to do in the next video is a bunch of JSP examples for you. Point out some significant things and talk a little bit more about the assignment, part 2. So we'll continue this on Wednesday. This here you probably could navigate. You probably could do on your own right now. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and make sure you've got your development environment configured and you're able to run. If you're still having problems getting it configured, spend your time working on that, and then see if you can get these examples to work. If these examples are not working, then I would focus on getting your development environment configured. You should be able to play tic-tac-toe. Hopefully you should be able to win because the computer's pretty stupid. So this is not working for you. You're not going to get anywhere with JSP or Scriptlets. So I would spend some time configuring your development environment. All right. On that note, I will leave you for today, and see you Wednesday.